This review of Sonic Mania may contain spoilers and coarse language. If neither of those bother you, then have fun watching and enjoying this review. Sega can be a stubborn company, but sometimes they make masterpieces, and sometimes they pull out crap. Sega's actually taking some risks with the West by purchasing Relic and letting some more people from the West take advantage of their IPs. Case in point, Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania is a quaint game that is technically a sequel to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, with it taking many, and I mean many, familiar elements from the previous games to help both narratively and nostalgically. Done by the wonderful Christian Whitehead, who... just watch some other guy. He's big in the Sonic fan game history. Boom, done. So is everyone else. Does that mean a staff of dedicated fans can create a well-crafted Sonic game? Let's find out, starting with the story. Sonic Mania's story is simple but lacking. Sonic and Tails go to Angel Island, Knuckles' home, upon getting a strange reading. This reading has Eggman's egg robos come and steal it right before Sonic and Tails get there. Eggman and his robos retreat with this gem called the Phantom Ruby, bopping Knuckles and forcing him into the story without his consent. Sonic and the gang run around trying to bop Eggman and his team of advanced egg robos called the Hard-Boiled Heavies. And then in the end, Sonic and the gang stop him, and then Little Planet goes away and they pose. Yeah, it sounds like I skipped a few things, doesn't it? Well, I didn't. Unfortunately, that's how the story is presented. Somehow, Little Planet from Sonic CD is involved again, and Eggman also reactivates Metal Sonic on it, making 4 non-canon, I hope. I mean, I think that's Little Planet in the background of Lava Reef Act 2. You never see it. You never see Little Planet get actually involved. It's just in there. My point is that the start is fine, the ending would be fine if any of the shit was explained. Nobody fucking... what the hell happened in this game? So even if there is some pretty art, I have no idea what the hell happened. I mean, you stopped Eggman, sure, and more so with the true ending, which, well, we'll talk about that later. Let's get to the gameplay now. Sonic Mania controls and behaves much the same as the classic Sonic games. Sonic can get rings as his health bar and loses them all upon impact, but he can recollect them and only needs 1 ring to survive. Collecting 100 and multiples of it afterwards also rewards the player with an extra life. Sonic's main way to go through the game is to use his momentum, allowing him to run up and down slopes, increase and decrease his speed and jump height. And he can spin around in a ball to go even faster through the slopes at the cost of losing some control. Among that, a move called the Spin Dash is used to help the characters traverse the levels and pick up speed. There are also power-ups that characters can collect, such as Speed Shoes, which makes the character move faster, Invincibility, which is self-explanatory, a 1-up for an extra life, and Shields with a variety of different elemental properties to them, such as the Fire Shield making you immune to any fire-related things along with being able to burn things down, the Electric Shield being able to draw in rings and have magnetism properties, and Bubble letting characters breathe underwater. Oh, and there's just a plain old generic one too. There's also the Combine Ring, which returns from Knuckles' Chaotix. When you get hit, characters lose giant rings that are worth more than the regular rings that they would find scattered about. There are 3 playable characters in Mania. There's Sonic, who is the star of this show, of course. He has a special move called the Drop Dash, which lets Sonic charge a Spin Dash in the air and upon landing, let it rip. When Sonic gets an Elemental Shield, he can take control of it by removing his Drop Dash to gain a new ability. He can blast forward, double jump, or super bounce. Tails is next in line, whose ability is Flight. By spinning his tail so quickly a stupid game theory could be made about it, Tails can take to the skies and find secrets in the game. He's best for beginners of the Sonic franchise. Then there's Sonic and Tails mode, where Tails tags along with Sonic. You basically are playing as Sonic, but if you hold up and jump, you'll be able to grab onto Tails and Tails can carry you around. This has both the benefits of Sonic and Tails and is basically overpowered, but it's probably the recommended way to go through the game. Knuckles is the motherfucker who lacks the jump heights of Sonic and Tails, but he can glide through the air and climb up walls. Because of his lack of jump height, sometimes Knuckles has to go through alternative routes to compensate, so he usually has more variety than doing a Tails playthrough. One of the nicer things is that upon completion of all the special stages, super forms are unlocked. That means Super Sonic is back, along with Super Tails and Super Knuckles, which is rather surprising. Collecting 50 rings and hitting the super button lets the gang go super. While in this form, they drain rings at 1 per second. But these characters gain invincibility, speed shoes, and higher jump heights. Well, except for Knuckles. Oops! One thing I do like, though, is how Super Sonic looks like he's charging up, about to unleash some fucking Dragon Ball Z-esque attack, but Tails and Knuckles don't really do much, so kinda wish they did that. Now we can talk about why this game makes me jizz everywhere! Well, not really, but metaphorically. These three characters all move like a dream, with no input problems I can think of. I've heard there's collision issues, but I've never experienced these myself. However, Sonic's speed would be nothing without the level design that is necessary for most of this. Because of how Sonic moves, having a flat, boring stage wouldn't mean that much. So to make sure of that, there's slopes, hills, valleys, rolling traps, and many other fun little instances to take advantage of how Sonic controls. Because of that, speed is a reward that is gained from both knowing the level and being able to figure out where and when you need to react. The levels also have their moments of slowing down just a bit so you can ramp yourself up and collect yourself on the mind-numbing speed you may have experienced. One of the more exciting things about Sonic's level design is that level-specific gimmicks are not taught so monochromatically like, say, Donkey Kong. Instead, all the stage-specific hazards are introduced in multiple places as you play, with each increasing in complexity. And despite throwing multiple ideas at you, the game knows you're not a moron, and you can go about your merry way upon figuring out how all these level-unique gimmicks work. The other exciting but somewhat draining thing is the level length. These stages are huge, and I mean huge! At least double the size of the original stages. Oh, did I mention that more than half the levels in this game are reused from the previous games? We'll talk about that later. These huge levels can come at the cost of you being in the stage just a touch too long. But, as long as you learn how Sonic works, you can make repeat playthroughs even better. Some levels, however, do have a gimmicky focus to them which can drag the experience a little bit. Like Oil Ocean needing to clear the smog that comes up every once in a while. There are tons of these pulleys lying around so that it makes it easier to do, but is still kind of a chore. That goes double to Metallic Madness, shoving Sonic into the background just a touch too much in Act 1, and making Sonic Chibi a touch too much in Act 2. Though it is adorable. Now, one thing needed to talk about are the references and nostalgia boners Mania gives people. As stated, 2/3 of the stages are reused from previous Sonic the Hedgehog games. These stages are fine, and their Act 2 variants usually come in to steal the sunshine. While Act 1 of these is pretty similar to their originals, to the point of reusing level design, Act 2 is completely different, pulling the rug right under you and giving you something more original. An example being Chemical Plant Act 2, introducing you to slime that makes you jump regularly or high, DNA strands that move you around, and sticky panels that keep your characters in place. However, some stages Act 1s are just as alien as the second acts would be. Stardust Speedway and Hydrocity both have Act 1s that introduce tons of new level tropes to the player right at the get-go. Though I wish these new ideas had their own identity instead of piggybacking off its predecessors. That's where the original levels come in. Studiopolis, Press Garden, Mirage Saloon, and Titanic Monarch are probably the best stages in this game. They feature some of the best level design, best incorporated gameplay mechanics, and have an extremely pleasing aesthetic. There are some messy bits like Mirage Saloon Act 1 for Sonic and Tails being a Sky Chase clone, with the more exciting part being the train that they totally should have referenced Sonic Triple Trouble on, but didn't. Act 2 of Titanic Monarch is also pretty boring, with it primarily being linear despite having 4 different paths to take at the start. But both acts of Studiopolis and Press Garden, holy shit! More! That's all I can think of when I was playing these stages. Same goes with Mirage Saloon Act 2, Knuckles Act 1 of Mirage Saloon, and Titanic Monarch Act 1. Hopefully, if, or more accurately, when Mania gets a sequel, it will get all new original stages. Anyway, these levels are gigantic in size, and their scope allows for tons of goodie holes and easy ways to collect rings, get more lives, or find a shield or two. These also encourage finding many more secrets, such as the special stages. Giant, hard-to-miss rings are everywhere in Sonic Mania, with about 2 to 4 each stage. This leads you to the special stages, areas where you can get a Chaos Emerald, and holy shit is it fun! These special stages have the gang running forward to try and catch a UFO. You have a timer that's slowly draining via your ring count, so you have to collect more to stay in the stage. On top of that, you have blue spheres that you can collect to help increase the gang's running speed, eventually topping off at Mach 3. At Mach 3, if you fill up the gauge again, you'll either get a point bonus, or you'll get a continue on no save mode. These special stages are super fun. Managing and prioritizing when to get blue spheres or rings is great, and there's tons of shortcuts that you can take if you just platform well. They do fault in some areas though. The first being the difficulty. I wouldn't say the stages themselves are like super crazy hard, but Special Stage 5 is quite a noticeable spike in difficulty. This is mainly because all the ways to get blue spheres are so out of the way and don't really help you. Then Special Stage 6 and 7 come down and are a lot easier. It just seems like these levels are out of order. Next is how the stage is rendered. This stage is just on a flat polygon, so anything like a bumper is also flat. Because of that, you can't really see where they are, and it also helps making Special Stage 5 harder. That's something they probably shouldn't have done. But with the special stages also lead into the bonus stages. As long as Sonic has more than 20 rings, he's welcome to go to the bonus stage if he crosses through a checkpoint. These are literally just blue sphere mode from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. No changes, even all the designs can be found in blue sphere mode. Why? They behave just the same as they do in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. You get blue spheres, they turn red. When you encircle blue spheres with red spheres, they turn into rings. When you collect all the rings, you get a perfect bonus. Getting these allow you to get medals, and these medals unlock new content in this game. These also suck. As fine as Blue Sphere is, the fact that there's no originality to it, and you're going to be spending about 2 minutes in here at most. These aren't really just bonus stages, they're just more special stages. Because of that, what you would be able to do in, say, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is go to the bonus stage and get like an item or something. Can't do that here. These seem tacked on and unnecessary. But the Mania mode for Blue Spheres is cool because it actually introduces new elements. But not in the game, so whoops. Introducing new elements is what leads into the bosses though. The bosses for this game are pretty dang good. Mostly. Every stage in this game ends with a boss fight, and the Act 1 bosses tend to be usually okay to pretty good. One in particular that's pretty good is the Heavy Gunner fight. When there's a little bit of RNG with how the rockets fired because you're supposed to hit the rockets back at him, he is still a pretty fun fight. There's also the Act 1 boss in Hydrocity, where you have to ride the original Egg Pod from Sonic 3 to damage Eggman. Then you have the Act 2 bosses, which are a little bit more of a mixed bag. The hard-boiled heavies in this game are probably the best fights in it. Many of the best fights happen to be from the Heavy Magician, Heavy King, and especially the Heavy Shinobi, the giant walking Shinobi reference. Oh, he is so fun to fight. But then when you go to Eggman's Mechas, it's a little bit more hit or miss. He has some great fights like the Metallic Madness boss where a chibi-fied main character has to fight little tiny miniature Eggmans and Amy's. Then you have stuff like the Oil Ocean boss, which is more like a waiting game, just like the original boss. And then you have Hydrocity Act 2, where the first phase is pretty alright, but then the second phase just, oh god, it's so lazy because it's just the same boss from Sonic 3. Like, they could have done something a bit more original instead of reusing the exact same boss. And that fight is also harder because Sonic doesn't have his Insta-Shield ability that he did in Sonic 3. What I do have to mention is the Metal Sonic fight. This fight is just so long. It's the reason why Stardust Speedway Act 2 is really short. And as cute as it is to have the little Silver Sonic references from Sonic 2, it's just so fucking long, dull, and really easy, especially at the final part where the rings can gather right before the spike wall. There's no real threat to losing rings in that part. You can't lose! In terms of both final bosses, the Titanic Monarch Act 2 boss is mediocre. He's one of those bosses like in Sonic CD where he gets easier as you hit him, and overall that doesn't make it that good of a fight, especially when you can sequence break it so he can't actually summon the rest of the hard-boiled heavies after you. What could have been so grandiose is just turned into a joke if you're super or have an electric shield. However, the Egg Reverie boss is pretty alright. While not the best supersonic boss fight ever, it's still one that's pretty grandiose in the good way. You're basically fighting two different bosses at a time and they each switch around doing different alternating attacks. While they're not actually working together, they're actually fighting themselves. It's still pretty cool to see Supersonic have to deal with both of these enemies at the same time. Now there is one boss that I don't think is bad, but I know a lot of other people will, and that's because of the Mean Bean Machine boss in Chemical Plant Act 2. Now here's the thing, I love me some Puyo Pop. I'm not good at it, but I love it. However, I know a lot of people probably won't like it, because they would expect a boss fight, but instead, the game pulls the rug under your feet and you're introduced to an entirely new genre. Yeah, that's not exactly the greatest design in the world, but I do like this boss. So overall, some pretty good bosses, but sometimes the Eggman fights are bad. And also, the Metal Sonic fight is pathetic. As much as Mania makes me jizz my pants, there's no denying that it feels incomplete, with the story being pretty shoehorned and not making much sense when it should be easier than that. Some stages have transitions to the next area, like they explain how Sonic and the gang get to the next stage. Though half the stages just transition to the next with no explanation, and that's pretty sad as it would have helped narratively. Among that is a pretty controversial thing with Mania, and that's how Sonic dies in Mania. But actually it's because of how it's tied directly to Sonic Forces. It's a prequel to it, showing how Sonic from Mania ends up as classic Sonic in Sonic Forces. While this in and of itself isn't a bad thing, if that's directly why some transitions are missing, along with that why there's some issues with polish, then let me tell you that it's pretty horseshit of Sonic Team to make sure that Mania is connected to that fucking game. I mean, that should also get another fucking year of development too, but this is a review of a good game with effort put into it. Now for some other things. There's other fun things like competition mode where you and a friend can race one-on-one. Locally. No online, just locally. This plays the same as Sonic 2, so you're ranked on time, score, rings, total rings, and item boxes obtained. So if you dominate in 3 of those fields, you win. Your opponent also has 60 seconds to reach the goal if you make it there before them, so use that minute wisely. There's also extra modes that you can unlock. As stated before, there's Mania's Blue Sphere mode, which adds many new elements. There's also a standalone Mean Bean Machine that you can play with friends. Locally. One really nice thing is that Mania modding is in full fucking force here. This game is really easy to mod, and it's one of the greatest things about this game. Being able to run around and change everything is really fucking fun. Yeah, he looks pretty annoyed by that, I know. There's also returning Sonic modes like Debug Mode, which lets you place objects and see if they benefit the level design or not. Sonic with different movesets as explained before with Sonic 3 and Sonic CD styled moves. Finally, there's the Best Mode, and Knuckles Mode. This mode lets any character you play as have Knuckles tag along with you. Now you may ask, what happens if I choose Knuckles? You know exactly what fucking happens, and you're fine with it. Ah man, look at that smooth sprite work for both of them. Speaking of that, how about Mania's graphics? Mania is fucking beautiful. What Mania does is add a nice extra level of polish to old Sonic game stages to make them look more unique and introduce more elements that the original stages didn't have. An example being right at the start, with Green Hill Zone having a cave section. Among others like Flying Battery having a dark stormy weather effect, and Stardust Speedway introducing constellations. Wait, no, I made that one. The original levels, however, take the cake of visual eye candy, with Studiopolis Act 2 and Press Garden Act 2 showing off the power of 2D pixel graphics with tons of parallax scrolling and flashing colors in Studiopolis, and Press Garden having some of the most beautiful color design and amazing attention to detail in the game. Characters are also extremely well animated. Sonic and the gang are super bouncy, and it's fun to see their expressions when they move, use something, or have something funny happen to them. Knuckles is by far the most expressive character, and I love the attention to detail given to him. There's even more attention to detail, like how robots have exhaust flames lighting up their bodies. Among just characters and enemies with attention to detail, this game is chock full of not just Sonic references, but Sega references too. I've already mentioned Heavy Shinobi, but other great signs are the Pink Bot being a reference to the Pine Pot in Streets of Rage, and the news car having Hornet on the side of it. There's way more that I'm not talking about, so you can check out somebody else who meticulously went through these things. But one thing I absolutely need to talk about is this game's intro. Just like everything else with this game, the intro was animated by a lot of longtime fans of the series. Case in point, this one was by Tyson Hess, who you may know better as the boxer hockey guy, aka Nipples the Enchilada. It's just so beautifully well animated, and it just looks so colorful, and it's so bouncy, it's so good. Now one last thing, when it comes to performance for this game is pretty solid. I haven't heard any other complaints aside from the Nintendo Switch version, which I heard has been patched. I mean, I hope it is. But that doesn't matter, this fucking game can run on any goddamn toaster, so if you have a toaster, hook it right up. Audio though, hot damn. Sound effects in this game are consistent and solid. Almost every sound effect is a takeover from the Genesis games, with some new ones added that also fit just right in. Go ahead, guess which ones are original and which ones are new. And for the music, holy tiddlicious fuck of Come Time Mountain. The soundtrack for Sonic Mania is incredible. And I don't mean like, oh yeah, really good and shit. I am talking probably one of the best soundtracks in the series. Trust me, I've heard some really stupid complaints about some of the songs, but I can understand where some people are coming from when remixes don't really add too much. Regardless though, the soundtrack is solid. I won't deny that the songs that don't use synthesizers are much better than the ones that do, as it seems Mr. T-Lopes doesn't compose that much with the Yamaha chip. Though, there are some absolute fucking masterpieces in this soundtrack. My favorite for sure is Press Garden, where it even incorporates sound effects into the song. God, this song is so fucking awesome. On the remix side of things, however, there are some songs that are remixed so brilliantly, I can't help but love them. Absolutely spectacular. Overall, this soundtrack is brilliant, and there's some great stuff in here. However, the original stuff is definitely the best part. Believe me, I'd love to have you guys listen to more, but I'd rather you have that cherry popped on your own. Oh, ugh. Well, change of subject to changes. If I decided to dethrone Christian Whitehead, bless his soul, and take some reign over this project, what would I change? Well, for starters, I would add transitions between every stage. Even something as simple as the Phantom Ruby teleporting our boys across stages would be small, but a simple step. Second, I would try to push more original stages. Although I do love the remixing with all the other stages in this game, it would be really nice that they didn't reuse level design and also introduced more gimmicks right at the start of the act. It's so cool when you see Stardust Speedway and Hydrocity introducing these brand new elements right at the start instead of waiting for Act 2 to introduce them. Thirdly, I would add a special ability to the Bubble Shield. While the Electric Shield has magnetism and the Fire Shield can burn shit, the Bubble doesn't really do anything. I imagine that since it's a packet of air, it would be fun to have it let Sonic breathe in other areas he couldn't do so normally. Like maybe make him immune to the smog in Oil Ocean Act 2, or maybe Flying Battery has a massive gas leak and the characters with bubble shields can only go through. As well, maybe it's a soap bubble. Maybe when you go into the oil in Oil Ocean Zone, you're unaffected by it. There's things they could have done with this bubble shield that I really wish they did. Another awesome thing would be Sonic-only paths. This is something that's explored in Press Garden Act 1, and something I wish they would have done even better, with it only being limited to fire and bubble shields breaking crates. I say push that even further, where instead of finding goodies, Sonic can find alternate paths. Like a switch that Tails and Knuckles can't press, but the force of a bubble bounce could open a new path for Sonic. Also, some of these bosses are pretty weak. Maybe instead of the Act 2 Hydrocity going into a remake of the Act 1 original boss, maybe Eggman could start throwing some missiles out at Sonic and bombs become more liberally scattered. Metal Sonic should also be shorter and much more difficult, ditching the running section in favor of, say, Metal Sonic Kai coming through and trying to smash Sonic. That would be cool. Other things include firing a fucking missile at Sega of Europe for adding de novo DRM to this game for no reason! You didn't need to add DRM, people were gonna buy it anyway. So overall, Sonic Mania was totally worth the wait. Since its reveal and the day of release, and then the 2 weeks later because I have a PC, it was worth it. Especially because PC users got the super button before the console plebeians did. Thanks for beta testing! But yes, this is a fantastic game made by fantastic people, and I would absolutely recommend it if you are a fan of platformers in general. This is seriously one game that makes you think about how to move and where you need to go, but it's still impossible to get lost. Learning from your mistakes and pressing on is what makes you better at this game. So go buy it and play it 1,000,000 times, because damn well you're gonna love this fucking game! Because it's fucking awesome! And for music, holy tiddlicious fuck of Come Time Mountain. Oh my god, did I write that?